Hello, this is Professor G, and today I'm going to talk about the Chapter 9 workbook assignment. I'm going to demonstrate a few things, and then we're going to do a little analysis work at the end. So let's get started with the kinds of formulas and functions used in this assignment. And the first typical formula looks like this, and you just use that to copy information from one cell to the next. The next one, notice that there are dollar signs right here. The dollar signs are used to freeze these cell locations. If we drag this formula down, this number will change, but E5 will stay the same and B5 will stay the same. Okay, the next is called an absolute function. There are no negative numbers. Whatever happens, it always comes out positive. And now this is an if function for revenue or net operating income, and this one here is an if function for expense. So it says if this number is bigger than this number, then that's favorable if it's revenue. For expenses, that's unfavorable because the bigger the expense, the lower the net operating income. This is the workbook that you're going to have with the traditional variance. We just have a planning budget, which is static, and then these are the actual results, and the variances show what the differences are. And if you notice up here, this is a nice increase in revenue, so that's pretty favorable. We've had 92 parties instead of 80 parties, but it resulted in only $780 for the month. Even though it's favorable, it's pretty disappointing. If we introduce the flexible budget between the planning budget and the actual results, we get a lot more information. So I'm going to start right up here. Okay, let's go down to here. So we want the number based on the increase in the number of parties. That figure, and it's going to be this number times that number divided by that number. This is the area where we want to freeze the 80 and the 92. So I'm going to start out this number right here times $sign E $4 divided by $sign B $sign 4. I get that number right there. So this I can drag down here. See, I put that thing right in that little square and down we go. And we've got this number right here. And continuing on, let's find out what the total expenses are, and that's using a sum function. And then I just drag these numbers down like that. And that's our sum function. And then, of course, for the net operating income for the flexible budget, I take the revenue minus the total expenses, and that is where I can come up with a net operating income. The next thing is coming up with the actual variances. This is where I use an absolute function. So equal ABS, and we're going to take that number minus that number, and that's the figure I come up with here. This number we could copy over to here, and we'll copy it down here, and we'll copy it down here. And let's do another one for the expenses right here. That minus that. So I could just drag those down right there. I'm going to take that one and I'm going to copy it over here. I'm going to drag this down right this. Bingo, like that. We're going to do an if function right in here. And this is for revenue. If this is bigger than that, and that's a good thing. And if it's not, it's a bad thing. Over here, over here. So this particular if function works for revenue and net operating income. This is the if function for expenses. We can copy this down here like that. We can also copy that over here, paste that, drag that down, copy that, and put it in there. We've completed the flexible budget worksheet right here. The flexible budget indicates this should be good. So this is the variance that we should have because it's based on the difference between these two parties right here. But look over here. This number did not turn out to be as big as that, and that needs to be investigated. Okay, down here, these items right here, if you add them all up to the 2520, that's what it should be because of the increase in parties. But we've got a couple of problems here with this one and this one. Those should be investigated. And that's what variances do. It tips us off to what we should look at. And I hope this has been interesting to you.